The Zarathian soldier stood tall in the crowded spaceport bar, his blue-scaled skin gleaming under the harsh neon lights. Commander Vextar had never seen a human before today, and he wasn't impressed. The creature sitting alone at the corner table looked pathetic. One leg clearly artificial, scars covering what little skin showed beyond his worn civilian clothes. The human nursed a drink with a hand that trembled slightly. Whether from age or old injuries, Vextar couldn't tell. "Look at that," Vextar said to his squad mates, his voice carrying across the bar. "The famous humans. The species that supposedly fought the Krell Empire to a standstill. This broken thing can barely hold his drink steady." His fellow soldiers laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. The Zarathian Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, and each victory had only made them more arrogant. They were the galaxy's elite warriors, enhanced with the best technology, trained from birth to be perfect killing machines. The human didn't look up from his drink. His name was Marcus Chun, though the aliens in the bar didn't know that. They didn't know he'd lost his leg in the Battle of Titan Station. They didn't know about the Navy SEAL trident tattooed under his shirt or the Medal of Honor buried in a box back on Earth. They just saw a broken man drinking alone. "Hey, human," Vextar called out, striding over with the confidence of someone who'd never truly been challenged. "I'm talking to you." Marcus took another sip of his whiskey. Real Tennessee whiskey, imported at ridiculous cost to this backwater station. "I heard you," he said quietly. "Then, show some respect when a Zarathian addresses you," Vextar snarled. The 7-foot-tall alien loomed over Marcus, his combat armor making him seem even larger. "Stand up when I'm talking to you." "I'm good where I am," Marcus replied, still not looking up. The bar had gone quiet. Every patron, dozens of different alien species, watched the scene unfold. Some with curiosity, others with the morbid fascination of those about to witness violence. Vextar's scaled hand clenched into a fist. In Zarathian culture, such disrespect demanded immediate response. "I said stand up." He grabbed Marcus by the shoulder, intending to haul him to his feet. Marcus moved his drink aside. Just a small motion, but something about it made a few of the more observant patrons step back. "I'm asking you nicely," he said, his voice still calm, "to take your hand off me." "Or what?" Vextar looked. "What will the broken human do? Bleed on me?" That's when Vextar made his mistake. He didn't just keep his grip on Marcus's shoulder. He squeezed his enhanced strength crushing down, and then struck Marcus across the face with his other hand. The blow would have killed most humans instantly. It snapped Marcus's head to the side, blood spattering from his lip onto the bar. 1 second passed. Marcus touched his bleeding lip with one finger, looked at the blood, and sighed. Shouldn't have done that. 2 seconds passed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several aliens who'd fought alongside humans in various conflicts suddenly found urgent reasons to leave, moving quickly but quietly toward the exits. They recognized something in the human's posture, in the way his breathing had changed. 3 seconds passed. Marcus stood up. The motion was fluid despite the artificial leg. Vextar, still confident in his superiority, started to say something mocking. He never finished the sentence. For seconds passed. The sound Vextar's arm made when it broke was loud enough to silence even the music playing in the bar. The Zarathian scream was cut short as Marcus's palm strike crushed his windpipe to half its normal width. Not enough to kill, but enough to reduce his roar to a wheeze. Before Vextar's squad, mates could process what was happening. Their commander was on the ground, his arm bent at an impossible angle, struggling to breathe. Marcus hadn't even appeared to move quickly. That was the terrifying part. To most of the aliens watching, it had looked almost casual, like an adult disciplining a misbehaving child. But the few who had combat experience, who knew what to look for, had seen the economy of motion, the perfect application of leverage and force. "Humans have a saying," Marcus said, standing over the writhing Zarathian. His voice was still calm, conversational even. "It goes, don't poke the bear." Problem is, that doesn't translate well to galactic standard. See, bears were these animals on Earth. Big, powerful, but mostly they just wanted to be left alone. You could walk right past one and be fine as long as you didn't bother it. But if you attacked one, he shrugged. Well, Vextar's squad mates had recovered from their shock. 3 of them, all in full combat armor, all armed. They moved to surround Marcus, weapons not yet drawn but hands hovering near them. The smart move. Zarathian military doctrine emphasized group tactics. You just assaulted a Zarathian commander, one of them growled. The penalty is death. Marcus limped back to his bar stool, and every alien in the bar noticed he kept all 3 soldiers in his peripheral vision the entire time. He assaulted me first. About 40 witnesses here saw it. But, hey, if you want to dance too, we can dance. Just know that I've had a really long day, my leg hurts, and I just wanted to finish my drink in peace. The 3 Zarathians exchanged glances. They'd all seen how fast their commander had gone down. But they were elite soldiers, and there were 3 of them. You think you can take all of us, human? The largest one asked. Marcus finally looked directly at them, and several nearby aliens shivered. His eyes were flat, emotionless like looking into deep space. Son, I've fought the Krell in hand-to-hand combat in 0 gravity. I've held a position for 6 hours with a broken rifle and a knife while my team extracted civilians. I've done things that would make your worst nightmares look like bedtime stories. So yes, I think I can take 3 of you. The question is whether you want to find out if I'm right. The bartender, a 4-armed Proximan, nervously interjected, "Perhaps we could all just quiet," Marcus said, not taking his eyes off the Zarathians. "This is between them and me. They can either pick up their commander and leave, or we can redecorate this bar with blue blood. Their choice." The silence stretched out. Vextar had managed to roll onto his side, still wheezing, cradling his broken arm. One of his soldiers knelt beside him, ostensibly to check his injuries, but really to whisper urgently in his ear. Whatever he said made Vextar's eyes widen. "Wait," Vextar wheezed. "What would you say your name was?" "I didn't," Marcus replied. The scar's the leg. Vextar's already pale blue skin went several shades lighter. You're the ghost of Titan Station." The name rippled through the bar like a shockwave. Even species who'd never fought alongside humans had heard that name. The lone human who'd held off an entire Krell invasion force for 3 days, giving the colony time to evacuate. The reports said he'd killed over 100 Krell warriors. The reports also said he'd lost his leg on the 3rd day, but kept fighting. "That's what they called me," Marcus admitted. "Though I prefer just Marcus." The 3 standing Zarathians took involuntary steps back. They'd been trained to fear nothing, but their training hadn't covered this. This wasn't just some random broken human. This was a living legend, one of the warriors who'd made humanity famous and feared throughout the galaxy. One of them started, then had to clear his throat. "We meant no disrespect to humanity." Marcus laughed, though there was no humor in it. "Yes, you did. You saw what you thought was weakness and decided to exploit it. That's what predators do. But here's the thing about humans. We're persistence predators. We're not the strongest or the fastest. But we don't stop. Ever. Your commander learned that lesson. Are you going to need the same education?" They picked up Vextar and left without another word. The bar remained silent for several long moments after they were gone. Marcus turned back to his drink, found it had been knocked over in the scuffle. The bartender immediately poured him another, this time a double, sliding it over with shaking hands. "No charge," the Proximan squeaked. "Thanks." Marcus took a sip, then noticed everyone was still staring at him. "Show's over, folks. Go back to your drinks." Slowly, conversation resumed, though many kept shooting glances at the human in the corner. A few, those who knew what the trident tattoo meant, who understood what SEAL stood for, raised their glasses in silent salute. Marcus nodded back, just once. A young Altarian, barely old enough to be in a bar, worked up the courage to approach. "Excuse me, sir. Is it true what they say about Titan Station?" Marcus considered the question. "What do they say? That you held the breach alone for 3 days. That you ran out of ammunition after the first day and fought with improvised weapons. That even after you lost your leg, you rigged the medical bay as a trap and took out another 20 Krell. It was 2.5 days, Marcus corrected, and it was only 15 Krell in the medical bay. The explosion took out some equipment, too, made the count hard to verify. The Altarians' feathers fluffed out, their species equivalent of goosebumps. Why? Why did you keep fighting when you could have evacuated with the others? Marcus was quiet for so long the youth thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because someone had to, because there were kids on those evacuation ships who deserved a chance to grow up. Because that's what humans do. We stand between the monsters and the people who can't fight back. But you're not military anymore. Why get involved today? A ghost of a smile crossed Marcus's scarred face. Old habits die hard. And that Zarathian reminded me of the Krell. All swagger, no respect for life. Someone needed to remind him that there are consequences for that attitude. The young alien nodded slowly, processing this. Around the bar, others were doing the same. The story would spread, as these stories always did. How a disabled human veteran had taken down one of the galaxy's elite soldiers in 4 seconds. How he'd faced down 3 more without blinking. How humanity's warriors never really stopped being warriors, no matter how old or injured they got. But Marcus didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to finish his drink in peace. His leg hurt, the prosthetic never fit quite right, and the weather was changing. He could feel in his bones, the ones he still had anyway. A Terran freighter was leaving in 6 hours, headed back toward human space. He'd already booked passage. Time to go home, maybe visit his sister's family, play with his nephews. They loved his war stories, though he edited them heavily. No need for kids to know what combat really looked like. He'd been traveling for 2 years now, seeing the galaxy he'd helped save. It had been educational. He'd met species he'd only heard about, seen wonders beyond imagination. But he'd also seen the same old patterns everywhere, the strong preying on the weak, might making right. Except where humans had been. On worlds where humanity had established embassies or trade posts, things were different. Not perfect, but different. Other species had learned what the Krell learned, what the Zarathians were learning. Humans might look soft and weak, but they were anything but. It wasn't about the advanced technology, though humans had plenty of that. It wasn't about the size or strength, where humans were decidedly average. It was about something else, something harder to define. It was the way human soldiers would die to protect civilians they'd never met. The way human medics would treat enemy wounded with the same care as their own. The way humans would stand up to impossible odds, not because they thought they could win, but because standing was the right thing to do. Marcus finished his whiskey and left money on the bar, enough for his drinks and a generous tip. The bartender tried to refuse, but Marcus insisted. He learned long ago that maintaining normalcy, routine, humanity was what kept you sane after violence. As he headed for the door, the Altarian called out, "Mr. Chun? Thank you. 4 Titan Station. My clutch sister was on one of those evacuation ships." Marcus paused at the doorway. "Just doing my job, kid. Take care of yourself." He stepped out into the station's artificial twilight, his cane tapping against the deck plates. The Zarathians were long gone, probably getting their commander medical attention. He'd be fine. Marcus had been careful not to do permanent damage. Just enough to make a point. The spaceport was busy, dozens of species going about their business. A few recognized him from the bar, giving him a wider berth than before. He ignored them, focusing on the walk to the docking bay. His leg was really acting up now. Too much excitement for one day. As he walked, he thought about the look in that Zarathian's eyes at the end. The fear, yes, but also something else. Respect, maybe? Or just the dawning realization that the galaxy was bigger and more complex than their empire's propaganda had taught them. Either way, it was a start. One soldier, one bar fight, one moment of standing up, wouldn't change the galaxy. But enough moments like that, enough humans refusing to be victims or to let others be victimized, and maybe it added up to something. The boarding announcement for his ship echoed through the docking bay. Marcus quickened his pace as much as his leg allowed. Time to go home. He'd done enough traveling, seen enough of the galaxy's wonders and horrors. But he knew, deep down, that he'd never really stop being a warrior. It wasn't about the fighting. God knew he'd had enough of that for several lifetimes. It was about being ready to stand between the darkness and the light, between the predators and the innocent. Because that's what humans did. That's what made them special in a galaxy full of species that had forgotten how to stand for anything but themselves. Humans remembered. Humans endured. And when pushed, humans pushed back with a ferocity that made the galaxy's greatest warriors think twice. Marcus boarded his ship, found his cabin, and settled in for the long journey home. His war might be over, but the watch never ended. There would always be bullies, always be those who mistook kindness for weakness, compassion for cowardice. And there would always be humans ready to teach them otherwise. For seconds, that's all it had taken to remind the galaxy why humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through conquest or empire, but through the simple, implacable refusal to let evil win. As the ship pulled away from the station, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. His leg hurt, his lip was still bleeding slightly, and he'd probably have a spectacular bruise by morning. But somewhere in the galaxy, a Zarathian commander was rethinking everything he thought he knew about strength and weakness. That was worth a little pain. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying one old warrior home. Behind him, the story was already spreading through the station, growing with each telling. By the time it reached the Zarathian Empire, it would be a legend. By the time it reached Earth, it would be myth. But in a quiet cabin on a battered freighter, it was just Marcus Chun, retired Navy SEAL, tired and sore and wanting nothing more than to see his family again. He'd stood his watch. He'd held the line. Now he just wanted peace. The galaxy, however, had other plans. It always did. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Marcus knew he'd answer when called. Because that's what warriors did. That's what humans did. They stood. No matter the cost. No matter the odds. They stood. And the galaxy would never be the same because of it.